I would say as well, our economy is stronger than the American economy.
Quite the statement, but is it true? Welcome back to Moose and Loose. My name's David. Here we have Mark Carney saying whatever he wants, whenever he wants, trying to convince people, confuse people to get the vote. Pierre gets a question from a reporter. She tries to diminish his record-smashing event. She tries a gotcha question on him. It doesn't work. It backfires horribly. We also have the Carney Liberal government admitting to horrendous spending to bad guys abroad. Let's jump into this. As we see here, Brian Lilly posting this one on Friday. Stats Canada announced 48,000 public sector job losses, mostly full-time, a total job losses of 33,000. So that means there was a gain of 15,000, a loss of 48,000 net, 33,000 lost jobs. In the United States, coming from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, they announced an increase of 228,000 jobs. Whose economy is really stronger, Mark?
Our economy is stronger than the American economy.
It's simple. Voting Liberals means more taxes, more food bank usage, more homelessness, more bad times, more government corruption, more uncontrolled immigration, more street candy, more job losses, and less healthcare options. While Mark Carney is announcing essentially no new plans, he rips off Pierre Poilievre's once in a while. Pierre's coming out with another one here, targeting people like Mark Carney, tax evaders who take advantage of our system.
You can't avoid your taxes. Global elites should not be able to either. And that is why I will end the Liberal two-tier tax system, where elites get loopholes and working people get audited. And I'm going to be putting hardworking Canadians first for change. Here's how. 1, we will be naming a Bring It Home Economic and Tax Task Force, whose mandate will be to ensure that we close overseas tax havens and force the very wealthy to pay what they owe. That my task force will specifically propose solutions to close loopholes that allow tax havens to be a source of evading taxes for the well-connected and the global elite. I'll also direct CRA to reapportion the use of its staff. We're going to have fewer auditors going after charities and small businesses, and more going after international tax evaders. The goal will be to collect an extra $1 billion from international tax havens and by closing the loopholes that enable them. We will create a public name and shame registry so that global, multinational, and billionaire tax dodgers are named and exposed so that everyone knows who they are. And we will expand the offshore tax informant program, giving whistleblowers up to 20% of recovered funds when they help expose illegal tax schemes.
That's amazing. What a great program. Not only name them, but reward whistleblowers. We should also reward whistleblowers in the government, like we had with the SDTC scandal and many of the other ones, people coming out, pushing back against all the corruption Justin Trudeau and the Liberals did over the last 10 years. This is how it should be. We shouldn't have tax evaders in this country. And I'll come out and say today, I'll announce that if Mark Carney wins, I'm going to figure out how this whole tax system works in Bermuda, and then I will share it with every single Canadian, so every single plumber, every single contractor, every single lawnskeeper can move their business to Bermuda as well, so we all stop paying taxes to the Liberal government and see how they like it. And this is not illegal. I would just be following the lead of our Prime Minister. Our Prime Minister is the one who did this. He's the one who taught us about this, right? That's how we learned about this. He was the one evading taxes as the chair of Brookfield, $5-something-odd billion. If that's how the Liberals want to play it, then let's move every Canadian company possible out of Canada so all of us don't have to pay taxes. I, for one, am absolutely sick and tired of my money going over to Uganda or some other country, or just disappears into the void for some gender eco project when we all know it's garbage. Stuff going to Papua New Guinea for witch ceremonies. I'm not making this up. As you see here, $26,000. This going to training representatives of rural women's networks to raise awareness using drama songs, verbal demonstration of women accused of being witches or sorcerers. The Liberal government spent our money on this. This is only 6 months after Justin Trudeau got into power. That's what they spent spent our money on. That was one of their first initiatives of our money. And granted, it's not that much, but still, it's $26,000. We could give this to the homeless, give this to a food bank, but instead they're using it for women who are accused of being sorcerers and witches. There's only one solution here. It's Pierre Poilievre's solution of getting rid of all these loopholes. So big companies like Mark Carney chairing Brookfield took advantage of moving the pension fund to Bermuda to dodge taxes at billions of dollars a year. Brookfield is a freeloader in this country. So what do we have here? This is something new I've been working on. So we've got Mark Carney and all his connections. And so we see his connection here to Brookfield. He was vice chair. Then he became chair in 2022, all the way up until 2025. Well, what do? They buy a lot of houses, infrastructure projects. They have for sale homes. They also have for rent homes. And they have the bailout property here. If we look at this, these are all single family homes they rent to Canadians. Most of these are in Canada. There's like Texas and Lakewood, Colorado, and another Texas and California. All the rest here are in Calgary, Edmonton, Airdrie. They rent a lot of Canadian houses. Brookfield is a huge landlord in Canada. That's just single family homes. They have townhouses in Vancouver. They have apartments in all these different places. Yet this company dodged billions of dollars in taxes. Mark Carney sitting as chair, first vice chair, then chair, moved the pension fund, which I haven't added onto this graph yet, still building this out. They waste our money on stuff like this. Then Mark Carney comes out and says he's going to build so many houses, record breaking, going all the way back to the WW2 days. Who do you think's going to be owning those houses? Mark Carney didn't talk about home ownership. He talked about building houses for Canadians. I have a sneaking suspicion Brookfield is probably going to be owning all those houses and renting them to Canadians. So Pierre coming out with a real plan here. And what does Mark Carney have to say? He accuses Pierre Poilievre of negativity and divisive politics. This is the guy who just insulted Danielle Smith and Doug Ford at his event just the day before. I believe this is from Richmond. He insulted them in Victoria the day before.
And it's all so simple. It's all so simple. You have a reflex to cut and destroy. And so while President Trump's plan is to divide and conquer, Pierre Poilievre's plan is to divide and be conquered.
That clip is not going to age well, and you're going to know in a couple days why.
And this politics of division, this is no time for divisive, angry politics. Negativity is not going to win a trade war. Negativity won't pay the rent or the mortgage. Negativity won't bring down the price of groceries. Negativity won't.
This guy's so unbelievable. They have quite literally destroyed all aspects of Canadian life, and then they don't want people to complain about what they have done.
Make Canada strong. And someone who believes that our great country is broken won't put Canada first.
That makes no sense whatsoever. That logic has zero weight to it.
We will win. We will win this battle if we are strong and united.
Strong and united with who? China? Is that why China's pushing your campaign, Mark? Doesn't seem really fair to have an entire country pushing you and trying to prop you up, spreading propaganda across Chinese social media networks. Meanwhile, we've got Pierre Poilievre ripping the Liberals and Mark Carney a new one, as Marty up north says here. Pierre sums up the Liberals' strategy. They want us to forget the last decade. They can't campaign on their accomplishments because they have none.
The Liberals are trying to pull a fast one. They have a very simple strategy in this election. And here's what it is. Make you forget about the last 10 years. Everything they do will be about bringing collective amnesia of all the damage they've done. The first trick they've tried is replacing Justin Trudeau with his economic advisor and a hand-picked successor, Mark Carney. Now, despite the artificially inflated resume and the more carefully combed hair and the banker's suit, there is no change. It is the same Liberal ministers, same Liberal MPs, same Liberal strategists making the same Liberal promises they have been making for the last 10 years. We know the results. Mark Carney has spent the last 2 months taking for credit for things he did not do, but refusing to take responsibility for the things he actually did. He was Justin Trudeau's economic advisor for the last 5 years.
You bet he was, and that's why we're in this position today. This sums it up. The Liberals have not changed anything. Mark Carney just stepped in. The Liberals have no accomplishments at all. What, they legalized the green Luigi? They doubled housing prices so people had 2 or 3 or 4 homes, got really rich? Those are their accomplishments. What else do they got? They have a laundry list of failures that could fill a phone book. That's why they're running on Donald Trump, because they have nothing. They have nothing else. I mean, look at this one from Melissa Lansman. It says, it shouldn't be difficult to stop sending Canadian tax dollars to terror lords. What an insane thing to say. Liberal MP, House Father, defends 100 million Gaza aid, vows as little as possible to terror lords. Are you kidding me? I brought this up numerous times. They keep sending money to terror lords. Why are we sending money to terror lords? And he even openly admits it. And what do we have here? As Leviathan posts, Hamas loyalists have shut down Montreal subway station, preventing anyone from entering or leaving. Just watch as they're babysitting. These people are locking down major infrastructure and should all be jailed for 10 years each. I can't play this video because it's more of the same. There's some cops there. They're yelling at people. These people can't leave the subway station. Look at this. And the cops do nothing. There's literally cops there. This is the Liberals Canada, folks. If you're on the fence voter, this is more of what's to come. More home invasions, more car thefts, more crime in general. Now you might be wondering, why would they want more crime? Because if they commit crime, scandals, corruption, money that disappears, if there's more crime in the news, that stuff gets washed under the rug. It gets forgotten about. Causing chaos allows one to launder money. Why don't they release the SDTC documents? Name the traitors. What we have here is the Globe and Mail reporter trying to diminish Pierre Poilievre's record-smashing record last night in Edmonton. 15,000 people at the rally. He has some fun with it. He's not playing those games.
Hi, Mr. Poilievre. Laura Stone, Globe and Mail. I want to ask about...
How'd you like our rally last night?
Well, I wanted to ask about your rallies.
Thank you.
And whether size matters. I actually want to know about your rallies and what your strategy is and who you're talking to. Because you bring up things like woke mob, Century Initiative, bulldozing the CBC, I'm exaggerating, but getting rid of CBC HQ. At what point are you just talking in an echo chamber to people who already feel that way? Or do you feel like these are broadening the tent of support to Liberal or undecided voters to get them on board with your campaign?
I think it's pretty broad. I think how many people do you think we had last night?
Thousands.
Well, that's pretty obvious. I think you can be more precise than that.
I don't, I mean, the party said 10,000 register. There's reports of 15. I really can't say.
One last question. When was the last time we had a rally that big in Canada?
I don't know. I've never been to a political rally that
Come
big.
on.
You know a lot about politics.
Well,
You're a very well-informed person. I know that if there were a bigger rally than that, you would know about it.
Exactly. He's calling her out on this. She knows it's the biggest rally in Canadian history for an election, excluding referendums and that kind of stuff. She doesn't want to say it. She's trying to diminish this. You're talking to an echo chamber. Does size matter? Give me a break. I see Liberals spewing this stuff too. Why would you bother going to Alberta? You're going to win Alberta. What's the point? This is the point. Record-breaking rallies. Justin Trudeau's rally of around 4,500 to 5,000 people was the record. Pierre just tripled that record. That just goes to show the thirst for change here in Canada, and that spreads like wildfire across the country. News companies that aren't woke and corrupt will report this, and people are going, oh wow, there's record numbers over there. So maybe the CBC watchers won't know about the record-breaking rally, but anyone who's on any sort of social media will.
I think so. But I think it was pretty incredible. Were any of you there? It's magic, eh? Wow. Incredible. Listen, I think to have 10 or 15,000 people at one political rally, this is a movement like we've never seen because people want change. They want to put our country first for a change. They've seen that after the lost Liberal decade of doubling housing costs, of rising crime, of taxes out of control, of our economy weakened under America's thumb, that they can't afford to live. And what they want is a new conservative government that will put Canada first for a change. And that's why my speech talked about axing taxes, greenlighting housing construction, expanding our energy sector to bring home our jobs so that we can put Canada first for a change. That was the message yesterday, and that is the message that Canadians are going to vote for change on Election Day.
And that's housing construction not owned by Brookfield, but by builders across Canada building houses for Canadians to own, not to have Brookfield as our giant landlord. Whether the Globe and Mail reporter wants to acknowledge it or not, this is the largest rally in Canadian history here. 15,000 people came out because we want change. While Pierre Poilievre has been completely transparent and open about his finances, he's shown his stocks, he sold his stocks. Mark Carney will not divulge what his stocks are. Does he own a lot of Brookfield? I bet he does. And I bet that's why Brookfield will get a bunch of housing contracts. Of course, he doesn't want to divulge that information. In this clip we've got, I can't remember her name, this strategist just absolutely rips apart Mark Carney.
I mean, Amanda, just on that point, I mean, what more does Carney need to be doing on the campaign trail to hit that threshold for vetting that you would like to see? Because, you know, everyone in my profession is quite upset that it's 4 questions, no follow-up with the Conservative campaign each and every day, and they try to pressure you into asking about specific things or you don't get a question, which is not really how it works. I mean, what more would you like to see from the Liberal leader on this?
I love the Liberal leader discloses investments and conflicts. I think that'd be a basic start that he has yet to do. And the argument is, oh, well, he can do it in 3 months after the election's over with when we don't know what's happening. I'd love to know where does Mark Carney live? Has he lived in Canada over the last decade? He's given a bunch of colloquial answers that candidly demonstrate to me that he doesn't know a lot about the country. So it's all great that I think he's an accomplished man who's done a lot with his life, but there's also very clear evidence that he has not been like a regular person in this country. And to run this country in the midst of a crisis, I think we have a higher bar than I show up and do some photo ops and take some questions from journalists and then go away for 2 days and be PM and you can see me in some photo ops, and that's good. That's not good enough for me.
Okay, all right. I want to get to Cheryl's pick, but you know, he has complied with the ethics guidelines as they exist, just to say that as a fact. And he's got a house in the Rockcliffe neighborhood of Ottawa. How much time he spent there, I'm not sure. You know, because he did work.
That's not good enough. If Mark Carney has $25 million of stock in Brookfield and starts doing all these policy changes that benefits Brookfield, that's a huge conflict of interest. So just taking a look at Ottawa here, you can see immediately the green space here, Rockcliffe area. So he lives in the fanciest area. I mean, you can even see the density of houses. Go to Rockcliffe and it's half as much. There's lake, got the Ottawa River here. So which house is Mark Carney's? If I were a betting man, it would be one of these ones. One of the biggest ones over here. Maybe this one? I don't think anyone knows because Mark Carney doesn't live there. He hasn't lived there in a long time. He probably just has a house there. He's probably living there now. Do his neighbors even know he has a house there? Well, Mark Carney's trying to convince people he's the voice of change. He polled 542 viewers on his rally. For Pierre Poilievre's rally yesterday, Pleb had 17,000 people watching. Does that say something? Next up, Pierre Poilievre's asked about Indigenous land rights. He gives an amazing answer.
Promise to scrap C-69 and fast-track energy projects. How do you balance out the Indigenous land rights and environmental review processes, especially in light of the recent court rulings on Indigenous consultation?
Yes, you're a very good question. After the lost Liberal decade, Indigenous rights have been trampled by this Liberal government. Liberals blocked the Northern Gateway pipeline with Mark Carney's vocal, on-the-record opposition to that pipeline, even though 80% of First Nations people along the path supported the pipeline. They killed the Tech Frontier mine, even though all 20 First Nations communities around the mine were 100% in favor of it. And the Liberals are keeping our First Nations people in poverty by blocking the resource projects that their communities support. And we interpret Section 35 of the Constitution to go both ways, that we have to consult First Nations who are opposed to projects, but we have an obligation to consult also those that are in favor of them.
Yeah.
The Liberals did not consult one First Nations community when they killed the Northern Gateway pipeline.
That's a mic drop right there.
And the result is that the 500,000 barrels of oil that we could have been sending to Asia at world prices every day are now going to the Americans at enormous price discounts. And make no mistake, it's the same Liberal MPs, same Liberal ministers, same Liberal strategists with the same Liberal policy. And Mark Carney testified against the Northern Gateway pipeline. So let's not, because he has a banker's haircut and he wears a normal pair of navy blue socks, don't think his position on these issues is any different than Trudeau. He supports C-69, which means there will not be another pipeline or LNG plant ever built again in this country. He supports the energy cap, which applies to Canadian energy but not American energy. He supports an industrial carbon tax, which will make major projects impossible to go ahead. So electing the Liberals to a 4th term will mean higher costs and crime and a falling economy under the American thumb. What we need is a change with a new Conservative government that will axe taxes, green light home building, pipelines, resources, so that we can stand up to the Americans from a position of strength for a change.
Wow. He was locked and loaded for that one. So So this comment here, Indigenous people should learn Mark Carney's father was deeply involved in residential schools. The First Nations have already come out and blasted Mark Carney for this, actually. I'm not really getting involved in that. Mark Carney's dad, that's all very much in the past. I usually stay away from family unless they're directly tied. If they have financial ties to the government, like his wife, potentially his brother, other family like his kids or his dad from years ago, I stay away from that. Other media will pick that up and run that stuff. Everything Pierre said is right. I mean, we've got this report here that Larry Brock posted, a Blacklock reporter. The government came out with a report, says breaking, the Liberals' own report confirms that Canada is in serious trouble. According to their own data, this is what's ahead if we stay on this path. A poorer population, the collapse of the middle class, Canadians unable to afford homes or live independently, a growing national mental health crisis, people losing hope in their future. I know this to be fact because I have people who email me all the time looking for help, telling me this is the last election they can do. They can only barely hold on to cast their one last vote. People are on the edge. They are on the brink of collapse, mental collapse. Financial collapse. These aren't people like myself that lives alone with a cat. These are people with kids. They can't do it anymore. We can't have this explosive rise of people taking their lives, kids with no parents, a complete collapse of society because we have some arrogant, selfish banker comes in and confuses people, tricks people into a fourth liberal government. This just cannot be what happens in our country. It's pretty scary when I watch videos like Rebel News where they go and interview people on the street and so many people have no idea what's going on. They catch a few snippets, but they just vote based off of like whether they like someone's suit or what their impression would be to have a banker as prime minister. People think because he's a banker, he will do good. Anyone can do good or anyone can do bad. If you look at the guy's history, net zero agenda. If you want a net zero agenda, by all means, vote for Mark Carney, but know what comes with that. It means the destruction of this country. As I've shown in a previous video, Desiree Fixler, WF former banker herself, whistleblower, who traveled in that global elitist crowd, exposed it. They use the green ESG as a way to just make money. They can tug on people's heartstrings, inflate prices, and make money off the back end. They sway public opinion of political leaders and then offer a green solution which they invest in to get huge profits. And that's why we see the fall of the UK, and that's why Canada's crumbling. That's why I have reports like this coming out. Canadians have 3 weeks to get informed or else we're doomed.